We believe in the power of empathy for human good. Damn, look at that mighty fine empathy.
Hi, I'm gonna sit on Jubilee for 30 minutes. No, I'm kidding. I'm gonna be fair. I don't think they're evil. I actually think that some of their stuff is good. But since Jubilee is a channel with 6 million subs and explores some very important topics, I think it deserves some scrutiny. And scrutiny is my middle name. Sara Scrutiny Mooknee. No, it doesn't have a good ring to it. Now, before I start talking about Jubilee, I shall tell you what my channel is about. I shall. My name is Sara Mooknee, and this is the only channel on YouTube where all videos are written and produced by a cow. Bet you can't say that for yourselves, Jubilee. You might have fancy studios, professional recording equipment, and millions of subs, but where's your cow? So they do these videos where you find the odd one out. So for example, 6 white people versus 1 secret black person. Or 6 lesbians versus 1 fake. Or 6 Taylor Swift fans versus 1 secret hater. Because, you know, that's something people asked for. Now, I'd like to see 6 humans versus 1 secret cow. Or 6 cows versus 1 secret human. That would be even better. So, what is Jubilee? It's a YouTube channel with videos dating as far back as 11 years ago, but it doesn't appear in its current form till about 3 years ago. It started as something small, as described by the founder. But now it's become its own media company. It has a very short but sweet bio. We believe in the power of empathy for human good. And in my opinion, when you look at their earlier videos, you can see this theme consistently. And I'm not saying that you don't see it in their current work at all, just not as much. They've made some questionable content that I would argue doesn't promote empathy, but instead outrage.
I don't believe that men and women are equal under the law either, or they should be rather. Children are not equal under the law. And it's not because we hate children, it's because we love them and we want to protect them.
Voyeurism.
Okay, I feel empathy for women being lost, being misguided. Look, I don't know.
Or just that feeling that you've wasted 20 minutes of your life and you don't know how you got here. Now, I guess I should make a disclaimer. Just because I think some of their videos go off message does not mean that I think the people behind the channel are bad. They seem rather nice. And also, so many people go into the making of these videos that you can't blame a single individual for the things that go wrong. Jubilee is by no means a force for evil on this platform. Far from it. It's a force for lawful, lukewarm neutrality, which is fine. But I think what gets me is the fake, deep tone of their content. They frame their videos as if they're really doing something.
It's interesting to me that we do this all the time, and like I've definitely done this multiple times on my phone, but it's definitely weird when you're in person. You're like, oh, I have to do this to you right now.
Like, did you really need to get 30 old women into a studio for a guy to swipe on them in person to deduce that swiping in real life is different to online? Like, whoa! Revelation! It's harder to be cold and ruthless when a person is standing right in front of you? Who'd have thunk it? And this brings me to the first genre of Jubilee video that I want to get my grubby little mitts on. And these are the ones where they get people to rank people by attractiveness. Listen, I'm no prophet or anything, but I thought that this was a very outdated thing to do, and that we have learned by now that rating people by how they look is very weird and dehumanizing. And wait, this came out in November of 2020. I could not do this. This would ruin my self-esteem. I mean, it already is, and I'm just watching it. So firstly, they get the women to rank themselves in order of attractiveness from 1 to 5.
Do you think you're the least attractive? I don't think so, but I mean,
where do you think you would fit yourself in this one then?
And then the guys come to shake it all up. Because empathy.
can you put on your mask?
Make sure you put on your earmuffs so you can't hear the things that are gonna hurt you, like you haven't already been hurt.
Where do you think you would fit yourself in this on that?
Well, I mean, I don't know because I feel like personality is a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the one.
Oh,
Two.
3.
Thanks.
Well, I'll say 3.
See, I would say 3 and
I'm
then
gonna say
4.
3.
I'd say you don't have a personality.
But I'm leaning.
Oh, I'm 5 again.
Do you switch with her? I forgot, they can't even hear me.
Yeah. You got a point. Okay. 5 and 4? Switch?
I actually think we were doing it
Mostly by personality.
Come on! Don't insult our intelligence, Jubilee. So the girl has quite the redemption arc as she starts at the bottom and goes all the way to the top, which proves, I don't know.
I was surprised at them placing me at the bottom, but at the same time, I know out of a room of beautiful girls that I was put in, that from the jump, there was no chance for me. there was no chance there.
Gosh, that's actually heartbreaking.
I knew that I wouldn't really rank higher because
American beauty standards versus what people see people of color, it's different.
But we already knew this. Why do we need to put people in this position to prove something that we already know? We have beauty standards. Those beauty standards suck. What has this video achieved? So I learned nothing new from that video. Did you? Now, let's see the same women ranking the same men. So here's what I got from this. Jorge complimenting everyone is very wholesome.
You're a pretty good looking guy.
I think you're pretty cute too, Roy. I still think they're wrong, and I should be like here.
The women just infantilized Roy.
We need to get the tender little sweetheart that is
Roy
right now. Honestly, I love
Little baby Roy.
I just like to say, what a little angel.
And the noise cancelling headphones don't work.
Now, can't make me picture them naked. That's weird.
do it.
So this is the kind of video that has such little substance, but will get views because YouTube viewers, including myself, cannot help but bask in the schadenfreude.
I don't want to be mean, but I didn't find any of them attractive.
I would not have looked at any of the guys. I would walk past each one of them.
So next, I'd like to look at a similar type of video, but instead of 5 people judging you, it's 100. They did it with a model where they got 100 people to judge how beautiful she is, and it's 11 minutes of people telling a beautiful girl that she's beautiful. So I won't show you that one. But this other one, I will show you, because I have some feelings about it.
We make assumptions about people all the time. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but how often are we actually right about the assumptions we make? And how often are we right about the assumptions other people make about us? To find out, we decided to put someone in the hot seat and have 100 strangers rate them 1 to 100 based on various levels of first impression.
I wonder if I look smart.
In doing so, we would hopefully be able to see how different ways of communicating could drastically change the way we perceive others.
So, based on his looks, they judge his intelligence to an average of 79. Fine. I don't have much to comment on that. But then they judge his intelligence based on his social media. And this part of the video is the most interesting and the most infuriating. And we do make judgments based on people's social media presence. But what's interesting about this is when people try to intellectualize their judgments, things go awry.
He just travels.
To me, if someone's traveling, especially if they're in college, all that means to me is they have the means to travel.
Okay. It may not make him intelligent, but it also doesn't make him dumb.
Like, there's no, depth. Like, nope. The Amsterdam picture, it was like Amsterdam with a capital D-A-M-N.
Also, what's wrong with Amsterdam? It's a fun little pun. Do you want his captions to be essays? Because I don't. I love me a pun.
It was pretty, deeply rooted in everyone's experiences, whether they went to college or not, on how they perceive having the means to travel and prioritizing travel over studying.
What do these people want? For his whole Instagram feed to just be him studying in the library? Also, have you heard of a little thing called study abroad? They actually aren't mutually exclusive.
I would have scored him higher if there were more social justice posts.
which is demanding performative activism. I'm not saying posting on social media is performative activism, but if we all adopted this attitude, then people would be posting for the wrong reasons. I'd rather them actually do the work. If posting to social media isn't your way of contributing to the cause, it might be reading, donating, protesting. It seems a bit harsh to assume. But I don't want to shit on her too much. She actually responded to one of the comments on the video. Wait, so the redhead girl said that solely because he didn't have much social justice posts on what was his personal Instagram, that she believed it makes him less intelligent. She responds, that wasn't the only reason, just the reason shown in the video. Which is a good point. I'm sure that this experiment took a lot longer than they show. And Jubilee may have cut it up, left in the juiciest, most outrage baity bits. And later in the video, she does say this.
Looking back at it, I feel like I judged him a little bit too harshly, and I feel like everyone else did as well, because it's social media, and I think we were being pessimistic instead of optimistic.
So I don't want to be too hard on these people for merely doing what was asked of them, except for someone later in the video, which I'll get to. But for now, let's check out their judgments based on the voice call. And it isn't just based on the sound of his voice, but they also ask him questions, which must factor in.
I love reading. I love reading anything from nonfiction to fiction.
What would you say is your favorite book?
It's The Great Gatsby. That was just my favorite growing up.
You have very good taste. Great Gatsby is actually my favorite book as well. It has been my whole life. Oh man, I hate The Great Gatsby.
Oh, well.
Oh, that's hilarious. I'm willing to bet that she's an English literature student. Because even though The Great Gatsby is canonical, it's very short and it's not the deepest novel ever. Thick book good. Thin book bad. For the video chat section, he gets pretty good scores, except for the person that ranks him low because he speaks too quickly.
He kind of seemed nervous when I was talking to him and asking questions, and I think like he was just talking really quickly, so I didn't really see him as that intelligent.
And at the end, they get him to guess what his average score was, and sadly...
I'd go with, I'm gonna say 86. Oh wow.
As I mentioned earlier, the person who rated him low due to the lack of social media activism had a good point. That when we judge people on social media, we often do so very cynically. And for her to recognise that in herself on such a large platform is admirable. But there is someone who doesn't have this level of self-awareness.
If he knows better as a marketing major, he should know how to sell himself, essentially.
Because if you work in marketing, you must constantly be marketing yourself, baby. You must speak only using advertising jargon and constantly be selling people shit. Okay. Which is basically being an MLM rep. Is that what you wanted to see? Hashtag girlboss posts?
He wasn't posting about all of the horrible things we have going on in the country right now, which we need to be talking about. He's just like, yeah, here's some of my favorite shots of me in Italy.
Ugh. Posting pictures in Italy? Monstrous. Again, social media isn't an indication of how engaged someone is with current affairs. Some people love to post about politics on social media. Doesn't mean they're informed.
Yeah, here's some of my favorite shots of me in Italy.
My jaw dropped the first time I watched that. I legit thought she was joking.
He didn't have photos with friends, he didn't have photos with animals.
Man, if this person saw my feed, she'd think I'm the dumbest of them all. I don't have any photos with friends. I better start. And there we go. Now, as much as I dunked on this video, I do think it's much better than the first two I showed. It is interesting to see how judgments differ according to what medium you're making judgments on. And I appreciate the honesty of these people, because often when we make judgments, we don't have to justify them. So, as well as this frat guy being put to the test, I think the people doing the judging were. However, I wonder if it brings much value to the viewer. So people watching this are still going to judge people. Hopefully they'll go on to question themselves whenever they judge people. I hope so. So Jubilee's fake deepness is one thing, but is it harmful? Not particularly. I wanted to explore this criticism as a starting point. So things do start to get messy with their middle ground series. So the idea is to bring two opposing sides on a debate and to bring them face to face to discuss their differences and potential similarities. So, for example, can Israelis and Palestinians see eye to eye? Can Democrats and Republicans see eye to eye? Liberal Christians versus conservative Christians. So before I get into my critiques, I would like to talk about what I think's good about this series. It brings people together in person, so they actually speak to each other like human beings. Unless you're a men's rights activist who just rolls your eyes whenever your opponent speaks. When they bring on people that actually know what they're talking about, it's interesting because you see a perspective that you might not seek out otherwise. I think that the liberal Christians versus conservative Christians videos is one of their best ones. It seems to me that everyone there is informed on their theology. I mean, I am an atheist, so take that with a pinch of salt. Oh, and Brenda from God is Grey is in it, so...
Excuse me, I love you.
Now, let's talk about the problems with this series. Of course, I went to my community tab to ask my subscriptions what they think of Jubilee, and boy, did they have some bones to pick. So let's get into the first critique. Jubilee dilutes important and nuanced topics due to its short format. As this commenter points out, they're not much more than a battleground. Their videos are so brief that there's no room for exploring nuance. And I agree this is the case. That being said, I think this is the least of the issues with Jubilee. With this middle ground series, the goal isn't necessarily to inform their audience on the minutiae of the topic at hand, but to see opposing sides interact and come to some sort of understanding. Now, does that actually happen? Not really. But it is understandable that 20-minute videos aren't going to be in depth. What's more of an issue is Jubilee's tendency to,
allegedly, in my opinion, please don't sue me,
spread misinformation. They do provide sources for the claims people make, but I would argue that they don't make enough effort to correct the false claims that are made. Like this person said, I think they give equal voices to people with bad opinions without fact-checking them. They spread harmful misinformation to people and portray that information as equally as valuable as the non-harmful information. Now, I want to be fair to Jubilee. I'm not saying that platforming ignorant people is automatically spreading misinformation, and this middle ground format is occasionally successful. For example, flat earthers versus scientists, where they decide to torture some scientists for 30 minutes. You know, people who have studied their shit. With people that just spend too much time online.
The internet has played an important role in confirming my view of this topic.
That's the problem.
As uneducated.
I'm running.
They think you're uneducated.
Platforming flat earthers may result in them recruiting more people. However, forcing these people to face people that actually know what they're talking about only highlights their ignorance.
Consensus is possible.
Scientific consensus is possible.
What is the question?
I don't understand the question.
Scientific consensus is possible.
I've been spending a lot of time arguing with people that argue the other side. And I found that surprisingly, consensus always wins. It was shocking to me that the group with the majority has an incredible advantage.
There is scientific consensus on a global Earth. There's scientific consensus on evolution. A lot of big issues.
Use the word theory.
No. Do you know what a theory in science is? An extremely...
And a fact is a fact.
Don't mistake this word theory.
You are.
In science, it's not conjecture, it's not...
It's an explanation. By definition, it's an explanation.
It's a deep...
Well, let's talk
so this
about
is
a fact.
something
Show me a fact.
Made a mistake.
Why aren't all
theory
facts
is
theories?
In science, the word theory is the highest level that you can give something because it's so well supported.
What about a fact?
That is a fact. It's
not a fact. You would call it a fact.
You know why? Do you know why? Because in science, there's always room for improvement. There's always room to find to tweak and find better information.
So that is how science works.
I don't think anyone who watched this video thought, damn, those flat earthers owned those physicists, unless they're already flat earthers, and you weren't going to convince them anyway. Whereas people who are on the fence, for some reason, would hopefully be persuaded not to go down that rabbit hole. However, when it comes to social issues, this middle ground format creates so many problems that I can't even address them all in this video. So first off, the idea of a middle ground implies compromise, which in many cases is impossible. How can you achieve that when you've got one side that says, hey, I'd like to exist without being attacked and killed, please and thank you, and the other that says, well, I don't want you to exist because I just don't. Not really sure on what the middle ground would be there. A lot of people in my comments pointed out to this particular video. Traditional versus trans. Are there more than two genders? And oh my, it is absolute garbage. Jubilee, you should delete this. Are you not embarrassed? From what I've noticed, it's been a lot of group without a direct stake in an issue versus group with a stake in an issue. Like, for example, rather than transphobic people versus trans allies, they opted for transphobic people versus trans people. And it's kind of rough. You can discuss these issues because the fact of the matter is that there are people that believe that being trans isn't real. Not sure if we need to platform them, but if we do, there is a way of doing it without putting trans people in harm's way, and doing it in a way that demonstrates why they have this belief and how to persuade them out of it. I'm just going to show you parts of this video because it's a lot.
There are only two genders.
Your DNA is going to be the same from when you're born and until you die. And it doesn't matter how you dress yourselves or what hormones you take. I mean, you're either going to be a male or a woman. You have those chromosomes in your body.
They put up a video of people discussing gender, and they don't even explain the difference between gender and biological sex. I mean, that's the bare minimum. But Jubilee does not do this and platforms people that don't understand this difference without fact-checking them.
Your DNA is going to be the same from when you're born and until you die. And it doesn't matter how you dress yourselves or what hormones you take. I mean,
I'm not saying you're stupid if you don't know these things. I'll provide resources from the World Health Organization and the Office of National Statistics. The issue is you're not equipped to discuss these issues. So that is already a lot. Also, the title implies that being transgender is a third gender, which it isn't. There's being non-binary, but transgender men and women fall into the binary of man and woman. So they are still a traditional gender, as Jubilee puts it, which is weird phrasing.
Not necessarily one or the other, which is the binary.
Scientifically, you are one thing and you'll always be a male scientifically. You can express yourself however you want to the world, and hopefully the world accepts you for who you want to be and who you are.
Our girl really went on a whole episode of Jubilee before checking Google on her phone.
Your DNA is going to be the same from when you're born, and it doesn't matter how you dress yourselves.
You know, you could have just quickly searched these things just before filming. Oh man, I should stop dunking on her. I just woke up today and decided that I wanted to be a prick. I'd also like to add that this title implies that this is a transgender versus cisgender debate. There's a difference between being cisgender and transphobic. These people just don't believe that being transgender is legit. And no, they are not clinicians or seem to have Googled anything about sex or gender before this discussion.
I grew up being a tomboy. Like, I am so connected to my masculine side and so much to my feminine side. I really feel 50-50.
Well, it's like the tomboy idea that a girl can feel and have these... More masculine. Yeah, more masculine. Doesn't mean she's not a girl. There's a spectrum, but there's two definitive parts to the spectrum.
So then would you, okay, well, would me being born male, biologically male, would you say I'm 100% male?
Well, you made the transition, so you didn't feel like
But
a male.
you were physically born as a male.
But
you
then
were
would you say I'm 100% female?
I will be honest and say I feel I use the chromosome, but I would say you are under 100% a male.
I wouldn't say that.
That would just be my belief.
I'd like to explain why I find this clip and whole video so bothersome. I understand that most people aren't very informed on trans identity. The views these ladies have don't surprise me. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people that need to be educated don't know that they need to be educated, which is why the line "educate yourself" doesn't work. Also, it isn't very persuasive. We can educate people on these issues and allow them to ask questions without getting into a brawl. What we shouldn't do is frame these issues as a debate. Trans rights aren't up for debate. End of story. This video didn't need to be made this way. This could have been used as a way for people that aren't informed on trans identity to become more informed by answering basic questions that a lot of cis people have. Questions that might seem silly to people that are immersed in these issues. The trans and non-binary people in this video were incredibly patient, and I'm sure that they would have answered the questions the cis people had. Now, I want to stress that trans people have zero obligation to do this. It just seems that the people in this video in particular seemed open to doing so. I could be wrong about that. I would argue that trans allies have a duty to educate other cis people in their lives, rather than leaving the burden to trans people. This video could have been enlightening for people that clearly know very little about the issue, which is the majority of people. What we got instead was this weird debate, where people that don't know much about trans issues were free to state their uninformed opinions as fact to actual trans people, which put them in a very awkward position, to say the least. People who are trans or trans allies watch this in frustration, and people who don't know much about trans identity aren't any more informed. If anything, they're being misinformed. So yeah, this one was a flop, Jubilee. When I first watched this video, I thought, wow, these people have so much patience, aren't they saints? And then it occurred to me, why should they have to do this? I understand that they signed up for this specific video, but trans people are forced to do this in their everyday lives. And yet again, my subscriptions made incredibly insightful comments about the issue, which I shall include, because they're much cleverer than me and said it better than I could. I think Jubilee is guilty of the both sides fallacy. It's the logical fallacy that just because there is an opposing argument doesn't mean it should be heard. It trivializes real issues into mere debate, when topics like civil rights are not theoretical. So yeah, just because you platform gay rights activists doesn't mean homophobes automatically get to retort. So this commenter touches on two really important points. One, that Jubilee trivializes human rights issues by framing them as something you can just debate over and come to an agreement, and claiming neutrality. Second is the logical fallacy of false balance or both-sidism. So just to quickly explain this, it's when the media presents an issue as being more balanced between opposing viewpoints than the evidence supports. It's this false notion that in order to be objective, you must be neutral. For example, when Fox News pundits cry about climate change denial not getting enough of a platform.
That I hope our viewers can understand, I'm not in any way denying that the climate is changing. I'm utterly open to the possibility that the change is caused by man's activity. I'm merely calling into question your claim that all of this is settled, that that we know precisely what is happening and why, and that anyone who asks pointed questions about it is a denier and ought to be imprisoned or shouted off the stage.
No, that was your word. That's you guys.
That's not my claim. That's how
so
the
much
world
of this
would be
you
different
don't
if it
know.
weren't for humans.
You pretend that you know, but you don't know, and you
gotta
believe
disagree
people
with you,
who
sir.
ask
I
you
really
questions.
have to disagree with you.
Well,
I spent a lot of time with this topic.
I'm open-minded. You are not.
When it already gets far more than it deserves anyway. There is such an overwhelming consensus on climate change, but by attempting to platform the few dozen scientists that disagree with the consensus, it makes it seem as if there's a greater disagreement in the scientific community than there actually is. Not only is this factually incorrect, but it's a regressive approach to social and human rights issues. If r/enlightened centrism had a YouTube channel. Yep. There's something very disingenuous about having people with such regressive and harmful views and being like, oh hey, let's make friends. I need to show you something. This wasn't a middle ground episode, but instead one of their Spectrum episodes. Do all Christians think the same? And let me just show you what happened.
I would actually wonder, because you're like, well, I want to love who I want to love, there's that attraction. But when it's like, where do you draw the line? When I'm a grown man, I like little boys. I am a person, and I know that you don't agree with that, but there are lines, because if we go by how we...
You know that's not the same.
I know you don't agree with that, and I know that it is the same. High five!
Christian high fives all around. This is the whitest thing I've ever done.
This is the classic centrist platitude of,
oh, the world would be such a better place if we all just talk to each other and try to understand each other.
That demand for patience and tolerance of intolerance is always more work for the person that is being attacked. It takes far more energy to forgive than to just spout bullshit. And at the end of the day, gay people, trans people can be as forgiving as they can possibly be. But ultimately, it comes down to people giving too much of a shit about what other people do with their lives. It's them that has the problem. They're the ones who need fixing.
If you would like to have a slice of pizza, the other side's agenda has caused my life harm.
I can't remember if it was the first time Obama was elected or the second time, but I do remember I was in middle school and a girl came up, got into my face, and was like, you're gonna cry because your president wasn't elected.
I felt very attacked
and very unsafe in that moment.
I would say mine was a little bit more life and death situation. I was attacked outside of a restaurant and stabbed 4 times.
So there is more. I have more issues with this channel. I would like to use this video to demonstrate my next few points. Men's rights versus feminism. Is toxic masculinity real? And it's got our boy Derek, who was also the star of I'm an Incel, Ask Me Anything. I won't be looking at that video in detail, but if you would like to have a closer look at it, check out Anna Marie Fuccino's video on it. I'm very un-Italian. Anyways, back to the middle ground episode. MRAs versus feminists. Help me. The casting for these videos, particularly this one, is not good. The person who cast this seemed to just think, I'll just get 3 women, as opposed to feminists who are experienced in debating and discussing feminism. Often, you have situations where the most socially accepted side, like feminists for example, is represented by normal laymen. Just people who believe women should get equal treatment and should be respected. They don't read theory or anything. They may not be the best speakers. Generally unprepared for the debate setting they're going into. Meanwhile, those that are more fringe, right-wing groups like men's rights activists, incels, etc., are a bunch of edgelords who sit around all day preparing talking points to own the libs. They may come from the incorrect side of the debate, but they are almost always presented in the best light. Because while one side you have Joe and Kathleen from down the street, the other side is someone who has devoted their lives to this exact topic. One side, they merely agree with it, and the other, again, often more fringe, often conservative, side is defined by it. No disrespect to the women in this video, they are smart and obviously have good intentions, but they were not prepared to debate these guys.
I think some of the things that you guys are touching on, such as the court system and gender roles, are a subject of patriarchy, and that's part of what women are trying to dismantle, is those traditional gender roles.
Are there any feminist organizations that have done anything, for example, to challenge bias against men and fathers in the family court system?
Absolutely.
Can you please give me a list of feminist advocacy organizations that have engaged in any meaningful advocacy to address those issues, because there are actually none.
Okay. I know that you came with your little research or whatever. I didn't come with a list of feminist organizations, but I know actively that there are women's organizations that are trying to dismantle those inequalities.
Just one name, just one
Again, I
organization.
didn't come with a list, my dude.
There are no such organizations.
Men, unfortunately, many of them don't want to even have this open dialogue that we're sharing right now. We need men to help be allies, to help speak to other men.
It strikes me the way you phrase this, you almost want men to say certain things that you want them to say, as opposed to maybe actually listening to what they're saying.
The irony of this guy saying that they don't want to listen when he's been rolling his eyes the whole time and only spoke to Sea Lion, this girl.
That's part of what women are trying to dismantle, is those traditional gender roles.
Are there any feminist organizations that have done anything, for example, to challenge bias against men and fathers in the family court system?
Absolutely.
Can you please give me a list of feminist advocacy organizations that have engaged in any meaningful advocacy to address those issues, because there are actually none?
Imagine if these guys were up against people that dedicate their time to debating these shitheads on a regular basis. It'd be a fairer fight.
Okay, I feel empathy for women being lost, being misguided. Look, I don't know.
Jubilee just wants people to have human and honest conversations. They're not trying to outrage people for clicks and engagement.
But I cannot sympathize with their ideological position, because that ideological position is built on a fallacy.
Someone who has heard this line before could have nipped that shit in the bud. It's frustrating to watch and misleading. In debating, and yeah, Jubilee might claim that these aren't debates, they're conversations. But these are debates where someone wins and someone loses. In debating, it's crucial to clearly define your terms and stances. We don't know what branch of feminism they're discussing at any point, what they define as toxic masculinity, or if these men are men's rights activists or merely for men's liberation. It seems as if Jubilee is less interested in informing their audience and opening dialogue than they are in generating as much content as possible and igniting reactions with juicy titles and thumbnails. I understand that this is YouTube and clickability is important, but these are serious issues they are dealing with, which I believe they're doing a disservice. Now, to end on a positive note, I would like to quickly talk about what I like about Jubilee. Like I said at the start of this video, I don't think it's a bad channel. I think their intentions are good, just their execution, with the exception of that awful "Do all Christians think the same" incident, their Spectrum videos are interesting and thought-provoking. They may not be super long or in-depth, but I think considering the length of them, they're rather informative. For example, do all teen mums think the same? My favourite thing about this video is that they took a group of people that are usually stereotyped as less intelligent and showcased how articulate and smart they were. It is important to have positive representations of teen parents, because whilst we don't want to encourage teens to become parents, it is important to show them that if it does happen to them, it doesn't have to ruin their life and they can still go on to get an education.
I used to be super outgoing in high school in my classes and stuff. Being pregnant as a college student, there's many times that I feel more timid to speak because I feel like people judge me more. And I mean, maybe that's something I just have to work on, but definitely my relationship with myself has has changed a lot.
Hopefully, if people in college see this and they have a classmate who is pregnant, they will make an effort to make them feel accepted. And the same goes for, do all teen dads think the same? We don't hear as much from teen dads, so that was really interesting. And as a side note, mad respect to this guy for his honesty.
I asked my partner to consider having an abortion.
Like, I was about to go to college. I was like moving away from home, and my girlfriend had plans to go to college and leave the state and travel and do all these things. And so I talked to her about abortion and adoption, about other options, like what we might choose to do, because it was just a stressful time trying to figure out like what we were gonna do for money before either of us had any college education or anything.
And he had twins.
I had moved in with my baby's mom, and it was a very stressful time because we had just gone from having 0 babies, obviously, to having 2 little infants.
So, in conclusion, I think that Jubilee is fine. It's not terrible. It just needs work. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Jubilee and what you thought of the points I made. If you enjoyed this and you are not yet subscribed, do subscribe, because when you do, you become a little subscription. And when you are a subscription, I keep you in my box of little subscriptions that I keep under my pillow. Anyways, before I leave you, let's do our subscription pet shout out of the video. This guy was sent by a patron, and gosh darn it, he's special. This is Bobby, and he is a Shetland pony. I want to snuggle him. A few years ago, he had to get one of his eyes removed for medical reasons, and it knocked his confidence for a little while. But now he's getting back in his groove, up to his old tricks. He will run up to you if you're holding a carrot, and he sneezes under the trampoline to get a nice scratch. He also goes to old people's homes as a therapy pony. Thank you, Bobby, for existing. We don't deserve you. And thank you for watching this. Have a good day or night, wherever you are. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. She loves it when I do that.